Hello everyone, welcome to Dataverse Media, and in today's video we're going to go everything you need to know about bar charts to go from being a junior level analyst all the way up to a senior and lead data analyst. Everything in this video in terms of bar charts is what I've used in my 8-year career to take that same trajectory, and on this channel I want to help you do the same thing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and switch over to my screen here, and we are going to go very high level over all of the things that you need to know. If there's anything in here you want to take a deep dive, step by step from scratch on how to recreate, please let me know in the comments section. We're very early on in this journey at Data First Media, and I can't wait to create more and more content that is going to be useful for you guys. All right, so let's start with just the basics, right? So what is a bar chart and how can we leverage it in a business environment? Bar charts are very good for categorical data. In terms of time trending and time series analysis, I always prefer to go with a line chart. It just looks better when you're trying to see trends over time, especially with many different data points. But in terms of categorical data, bar charts are very valuable. The y-axis is going to give you that number, the count of whatever you are, the measure that you're looking at, and the x-axis is going to be your categories. Bar charts almost always are going to be sorted in descending order. This will help you compare different groups together in order. On rare occasion, you might want to order them alphabetically or in another scenario that makes sense for your business, but in most cases, you're going to go this route here. All right, so what are some of the types of bar charts that we're looking at? Well, this is your most basic one, and you're going to use this 9 times out of 10. It's a very simple bar chart. You got your categories, and that's it. Now, in some cases, you may want to see multiple layers and cuts of your data within one bar chart. And so you can use something like a stacked bar chart. So this not only shows us the total for this category, and I should say that we're looking at Amazon sales data from a store in India. It is a sample data set in Kaggle. So if you've ever been in need for data sets, or if you want to see really cool projects, especially around coding, you can go out to Kaggle.com. But I primarily use them for really good sample data sets. So what we're looking at here today is a Amazon store located in India, and we're going to get a lot of their, kind of the order history for 3 months. So the stacked bar chart is showing us not only the totals for each of these groups, but also the breakout within the group of what was fulfilled by Amazon and what was fulfilled by the merchant. Okay, and the nice thing about Power BI is it has evolved over time. So now if we wanted to actually show a totals label, we could do that too. In the past, Power BI had a kind of a limitation there, but in this particular case here, we can see both the individual totals for the two groups as well as the total count for this bar chart. So a very useful tool, and I have used it on occasion when necessary. In the real business world, a lot of companies will have different business units or divisions, or where I'm working at now, which is in the talent acquisition space, you have employee type. So you may want to know your overall fills or your overall hires for a certain time period, but you also might want to see within that total, what is it broken down by employee type, hourly, salaried, contractor, intern, different things like that. I would warn any more than 2 or 3 categories within a stacked bar chart can get busy and you start to lose your stakeholders. So I would suggest maybe creating a separate chart if you have any more than 2 or 3 groups. All right, you can also use a grouped bar chart, and this is also useful to to track multiple different measures of your data. Here you can see that within each of the product families, we are tracking it over the last 3 months. So while I'm not in love with bar charts over long periods of time series analysis, when you want to see short-term trends while also comparing each other relatively to the other groups, bar charts can be really effective like this. I would say 3 is probably the most I would do. It's not always 3 months in a row. You could easily do, current month, prior year, month over month, and year over year metrics that a lot of businesses care about. And I've done that as well. That would require a little bit more creativity from a measures standpoint. Maybe I'll do a video about that. But you could easily turn this into a current month, prior year. So you get that month over month, year over year trending for each of the product families, while also being able to compare them across, different families. And finally, the one that I use probably the least is the 100% stacked bar chart. In many cases, you're probably just going to create an interactive report or dashboard in Power BI with a donut or a pie chart, and it would allow the user to click on another chart to get a percentage breakout of that category. But in the case where maybe you're putting it in a PowerPoint and users can't interact with the report, or maybe you just do have a business need for this, the 100% stacked bar chart does not compare the overall number for shirts relative to dresses or pants. What it does do is it tells us the breakout of each of these by fulfillment method. So we can see very quickly that the merchant, a merchant is fulfilling a high percentage of the dress and pants orders, while Amazon is covering a proportionately large part of the shirts, others, and accessories. So this is a bar chart that you can go to if you need to. However, this is probably the least used of all the bar charts we're going to talk about in this video. All right, so we've talked about the basics. What is a bar chart? Types of bar charts. Let's go ahead and go into how you can use colors within bar charts to add another layer to your reporting. So as you can see here, and I'll highlight this as to kind of remove any distractions. So right now we are comparing all product categories to each other in terms of overall order count, but we also have it color coded by product family. So not only we can easily see, okay, here we've got we've got our shirts right here. We have a dress here, another dress over here. The gray is other, which is a full set, so we can see that as well. But it allows us to not only compare everything across multiple product families, but we can also see the families and kind of compare. We can easily see here that Kurtas, I hope I'm saying that right, are a much higher selling shirt than just the top category. One thing you'll also notice in this bar chart is when you have skewed data, it can make for less than meaningful analysis towards the end of your your data set or your distribution, I should say. So that's one thing you'll have to keep in mind. In some cases, you can just kind of group everything together into an other bucket, and then kind of call out to your users what other means. But just keep in mind, it's not great for hugely skewed data sets, which this kind of is. But for the sake of this video, I think we can get a pretty good idea of what we're doing here. All right, so another way to use colors in your bar charts is to call out something more dynamic than a product family. A product family is very static. Tops and kurtas are always going to be shirts. Dresses are always going to be dresses. However, if you want to see, order count across all of the families and then call out very quickly which ones were profitable and which ones were not, you can create a measure, and then you can build, you can conditionally format these, these bars as that measure. And we'll quickly go over that again. I don't want to get into too many details about all of this, so it'll be a very long video. But as you can see here, we can see very quickly which ones were profitable and which ones were operating at a loss based off of this formatting. And if I come over here and go to columns, I have it set to calculate at the data set level. So say within a SQL query or within your Power Query, you can go through and calculate which families were at a profit or a loss. Or you could also, I did that because it was quickest, you could also create a measure called profit or loss, and then you could set the colors to conditionally format. So that's another option as well, and we'll probably do a video on that in the future. You can also, I don't do this a lot, but this is useful for PowerPoints where you're trying to tell a story. You can highlight just an individual value within a large group. And so maybe we're doing some sort of cost analysis or some sort of product spotlight on Kurtas. we could call it out with a color so we can easily see the main character within this analysis while also comparing to others. So that is another way to use colors within bar charts to add to your reporting. Again, this plays much better within presentations or where you're trying to tell a story. It's not always the best option for like a living, breathing report. All right, and then finally for colors, you can do sort of like a heat map situation. So in this particular case, we are doing order count by the average sales amount. So not only can we compare the order count over a large portion of our product line, but based on the color, we can see which ones have the highest and lowest, average order sale, sale amount, right? And so we can hover here and we can see that the average here is 780 for sets, and Kurta is 427. And so it's a really useful tool here to see, okay, they sell at about the same amount in terms of count, but we're getting much more sales. We're getting a much higher average sale price with these orders within the sets. So it's a very useful tool to include this kind of coloring within your report. All right, let's go ahead and talk about just real quickly when to use a y-axis and when to use data labels. So one of the fundamental things you have to learn as a data analyst very early is that while you're very comfortable with data and you can read it and understand it very quickly, a lot of your stakeholders are not going to be that way. A lot of your stakeholders are going to have great business sense, they're going to have great experience in their industry, but they might not know much more than pivot tables in Excel. And so throwing too much of them at one time can actually take away from the value of your report, which is, to help them make better decisions and to operate on a day-to-day basis within their job better. So when you've got a handful or a small amount of categories within a bar chart, I think it's always better to use data labels. The reason why is because, if we were to slap the y-axis on here and I was looking at this, if I didn't have these numbers, I would basically have to trace the line over and try to guess, about what number that is. Now, the great thing about Power BI is you can hover and it'll give you that number as well. But I think it's much easier and much more natural for users to just be given the number on the bar chart itself. And, this allows us not only to see the absolute numbers, but also compare, at the same time. Now, in terms of where the data labels should be, it doesn't matter. It can be outside end or it can be inside. I think it should always be the outside end or the inside end. I think it should be at the top of the chart. It just feels more natural, I think, to most users. And I would also caution, if you can, try to make sure it's consistent across all of the bars. The reason why is when you've got, one outside and one inside, it may, make it harder to compare the two, right? I can very cleanly see the top of this one compared to this one compared to this one. But, if I had a label up here, training my eye to focus on this level here versus the top of the number, it's just more natural to have them all consistent. And so I would say just pick one outside end or inside end, and that's it. Now, if you were in a scenario where you have a lot of bars across one chart, I think it's much better to have a y-axis, and here's why. So if I come here and I add data labels, you can see not only are they very hard to read when they do show up, but they're also not on every bar. So what's the point anyways? So I think when you have a scenario where you have a bunch of bars and you want to make this the easiest for your user, I would suggest, just throwing on the y-axis, making sure your users know that they can hover and get the exact amount, and that will be fine enough. But again, you're not going to be using bar charts for large, data sets like this. In fact, like this here would be much better as a line chart. But for the sake of, kind of illustrating when to use data labels and when to use the y-axis, that's the main point, right? What's the easiest to read for your users and what's going to be the most natural? And as you're a data analyst and you start to build out more and more reports, you'll get a feel for that. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to target lines. Target lines are a really easy way to add that, extra pizzazz to your reports that kind of make your stakeholders think, man, these are really awesome reports. And it's just so simple, right? So let's say here we have a static $25 million, and actually I believe this is in India's native currency, but let's just say $25 million is our target sales for a given month. By adding this target line, we can easily see which ones are above and below our target. You could go as far as color coding this, but again, that might be too many distractions when we can easily just track this line to see what's above and below. It's very simple to add a target line like this. So if I come over here to this, not hourglass, this magnifying glass, and I go to constant line, I can type in my $25 million value, add in a few other features, and there you go. You have your line. Let's say that we wanted to change it to 20 million. I can easily do that, and now you can see that every single one of them hit our target. Now, if you want to get more advanced with it, you can actually, instead of putting a hard-coded number in here, put a measure. So you'll see here in the measures table, I have an average sale, or average monthly sales, I believe. Yeah, I have average monthly sales, and that's what's calculating this, right? So if I were to clear this, I'm going to add a line. And I am going to go average monthly sales. Oh, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. All right, so this is actually the name of the line, but if I want the value to be a measure, I'm going to come over here and hit the FX button, and I'm going to say it needs to be a field value, measures table, average monthly sales. Hit OK, and now I get my line back. I could, click all of my formatting options that I want, and this was simply just the distinct count of the number of months in the chart, and then just divided total sales by that number. So that gives us the average monthly sales, and now as that number changes, our our target line here will change, and the target line will always be the average monthly sale number. So we can quickly see which ones were above and below average. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So before I get into this one, I do want to give a shout out to Boss at How to Power BI. He is a really great Power BI content creator on YouTube. I watch all of his videos, even being a data analyst for almost a decade now. He is teaching me new things every single week. So definitely check him out. And he has a very detailed video on how to create custom labels within a bar chart. So you can see here, now this data set's probably not bad for this kind of bar chart, but when you have a vertical bar chart like this, sometimes your categories will get cut off. Sometimes you will have so much room over here that there's not much room left for your bars. And so that's where this custom label solution comes into play. And so you'll notice just through a series of measures, we have kind of moved the categories to the top of the bar. And it's a much cleaner look, especially, like I said, when you have those really long category names. So definitely check out his video. I'll link it in the description of this one to how to create this. It's 10 minutes. I'm telling you, it takes 10 minutes to create this. And this is the type of thing that will blow your stakeholders' minds. I guarantee it. All right, let's go ahead and move through a couple of advanced features that I use quite a bit on a day-to-day basis. The first one being drill down. So if I click on this, I can see that I have my hierarchy here. So I have my product family, and then below it, I have product category. And so your users, if you've set your report up correctly, can right-click on a bar. So let's do maybe shirt. Right-click, and they can drill down. And as they drill down, they go from the family to the category, right? So now I can see all of the shirts compared to each other. If I want to navigate back up, I can drill up. You can also go to the next level for all products, which would be, or all product families, which would be this double line. So if I click on this, I now get all products. So instead of having a separate product and product family chart on the same report taking up space, you could easily set this up with the drill down and allow your users to navigate it as needed. If you wanted to, it can get busy, but if you wanted to show both the family and the products when drilling down, you can do this little split arrow, And so then it'll give you kind of the product family and the product all within one chart. So very useful feature there. Now to take this to a little bit of a next level, you have the drill through option. So here we can see a hidden page, and it is kind of a product spotlight, right? So for a product, we can see the monthly sales, the breakout of fulfillment type, and then the overall metrics by city. So how do I get there? Well, it's very important, if we navigate back to this, that you set up your report page that you want to drill through to correctly. So within this report, we have category in the x-axis. This means that we're going to want to drill through category to get to the product spotlight. So as you can see down here, if I create this, there's add drill through fields here. So anything I want to drill through, I need to add here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit category. All right. And once I've added that to the drill through fields, I can navigate back here. I can right click, let's say on Curta, drill through product spotlight. And there you have it. Now we've drilled through to the product spotlight. I would always recommend, because the report page doesn't really call it out, to add a measure within your drill through page to kind of let the user know what they had drilled through, right? It's easy to right click on something, drill through, and then kind of forget what you're even looking at. And it's very easy to do that. This KPI measure, I just used a KPI card for categories selected. And you can see here, selected value, product categories. So when there is a single product selected, this measure is going to give us that. So it'll easily tell, remind me what I had clicked on and what I'm looking at. I'm going to go ahead and navigate back with this back arrow, and it takes me back to where I drilled through from. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is tooltips. So I did an entire video, it's like 20 minutes long, if you've got a long lunch to review it, of how to leverage tooltips to take your reports to the next levels. I will link to that video both in the description and hopefully put a card right now where I'm talking somewhere on the screen for you to navigate to that. The most simple way to set up tooltips is to use the tooltips section down here when setting up a bar chart. So you've got your x-axis, you have your y-axis, but you can actually pick additional measures to add as tooltips. So when I hover, I can see not only the total sales and the category, but I can also see the average sale amount, the order count, and also the average monthly sales for that product. So it's a very good way for your users to get additional information without overwhelming them within the report. Finally, if you want to take your report tooltips to the next level, you can actually create a tooltip page. So here we have total sales by month. And this is different than the drill through. You don't have to do anything over here. You just have to go page information, allow as a tooltip, and then select a good size for a tooltip. It actually can be custom, but the tooltip feature actually I think is really nice. So once you've set up the page that way, you can come back over here, and when I hover on this report, now I can see that tooltip page that I had created. The sky's the limit with this. I mean, you can add multiple charts within a small page if you would like, but this really just takes your reports to the next level. People will think you're wizards, if you start to do stuff like this within your reports, and it's incredibly easy when you get the hang of it. Now, in order to set up a chart to do that, you do have to come over here to General and Tooltips, turn them on, and then pick the report page and then the specific page that you want. And once you've done that, you get your tooltip just the way we looked at it. All right, I hope that was enough information to give you guys ideas on how to use bar charts. However, I know there's probably still going to be a ton of questions, so let me know in the comments section below what you guys want to dig into more, and I'll make sure I get those up one of the next few videos. If you like content like this, please like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.